Hi. Today I want to talk about spirituality and awakening to developing a spiritual practice. A lot of people really are spending a lot of time looking for ways in which to derive other meaning in their lives, some purpose, finding out what their true purpose is. Why am I here? Why was I born? Why did I take this human life? And is there something beyond what I've learned, maybe through religion? Maybe the definition of God or the practice that I've learned, the dogma of religion, is something I can't relate to as a pathway to find my own individual private relationship with that which we might consider divine. This is where spirituality comes in. Spirituality is about our personal relationship with that which we consider to be divine. So, what is that? What and how do we get there? What do we need to do to begin? So, most spiritual practices have very structured uh, things that need to be done. So, one is spending time by yourself in quiet time. And some people uh, who spend quiet time by themselves, notice that there's a lot of inner chatter and noise. And so we use flow. You can check my other video on flow on how to cancel that noise out and quiet down that noise. And then the rest of spirituality is about really changing the frequency at which we experience. So if we are experiencing fear or self loathing kind of emotions, that's a very lower frequency. And what we learn is that those are frequencies owned by our ego state. And ego state is what's going to keep us from really accessing the truth of who we are. So, um, self actualization, the term self actualizing, means discovering who we are as a soul. And that's where that divinity comes in because our soul is divine, our soul is of God. And so when we discover who we are as a soul, we are really in a higher frequency because our soul is in the frequency of love. And that's a much higher frequency. So, how do we get to that? Well, step one, we need to get out of our own way. And if there's fear or self loathing, understand that these emotions are teachers and they're designed to be here to feel. Our soul took a life in order to evolve. And the path of evolving is through the feelings. We weren't given emotions for no reason at all. Emotions are teachers. Pain is a teacher. The challenges that we have in life are the lessons right there in front of us. They're lessons for us to work through and learn by moving through them. And that's where our soul starts to begin to raise in frequency and starts to evolve. And others are affected by our soul raising in frequency. So we're already changing our life purpose and giving it meaning and helping the world, helping the universe, helping on all different levels. So we have to work through these challenges, life challenges that have maybe even had us attached to through memory systems with negative feeling states. And we may even identify with those negative feeling states. We may feel very unworthy. And this is where practices like psychotherapy, like EMDR and hypnotherapy, really work to help us release those negative stuck states and work through them and learn lessons in the process of doing that work. Um, there's a lot of techniques that I have is as a psychotherapist where we could bypass activating emotions and feeling pain and just get to healing. And sometimes I have to use discretion because I don't want people to miss out on opportunities to learn through feeling emotions as we go through them. So, um, if there's a lot of pain, of course, I'm going to do what I can to mitigate that. But if we can reach a point where we can tolerate challenges that we're working through, then there's going to be great learning and it's just going to be so much better at the other side of it. So there are um, other energetic approaches and methods to uh, losing things that we're attached to. But if we uh, look at biology and neurobiology, we can see that most traumatic memories are stored neurobiologically, and we have to work through those neurobiological processes. And they're very effective, and they work really fast. They work almost immediately, and it's just really not a really bad approach, though it can take time to go through all this memory that we may need to unload. But we really get there. And I wouldn't be doing a video on spirituality if I didn't actually watch the transformation of people who come in with deep traumas, start to change their frequency, and start asking about spirituality as they're recovering because they're already in tune with how they feel energetically, and they're noticing this change, and they're noticing that there must be deeper meaning after learning these lessons. They're starting to really get in touch with who they are as a soul, and they're starting to learn that there's something spiritual going on, that this is a divine plan that they're in, that this is not happening for no reason at all, that in hindsight, what happened to them, as horrible as their life may have seemed, they're starting to see there was a reason for them to be in those shoes, in that life, in that moment, and experience those parents and what they did for a reason. From a bigger grand view, it starts to have purpose and meaning. And we may not see that when we're in it, and we may not see that immediately on the other side of that. But when we step away from it from a while, we start to see, my gosh, what we can learn about who we are and about self-actualizing from our traumatic past. So we have to release our past and get out of the way. And then what we might notice is that our soul wants to show us something else that we need to learn. And maybe that is in a past life. And we may have some past life regression work to do to learn lessons. So as we go through these layers, so first there's the big gross layers, and then they become finer and more discreet, and the lessons are a little bit lighter, but they're more discreet. And sometimes they're not lighter. Sometimes they're big, heavy lessons that come later on, but they're just in a format that now we're ready for. It's that we're not ready for those other more refined lessons that we might find in past lives until we're ready. And then when we're ready, we'll be shown them. We'll be prompted by our soul to see those. Or they suddenly, when I'm doing EMDR or hypnotherapy in someone, they that's where we end up, because they're ready to go there, and their soul wants us to see those lessons and learn those lessons. And when we start to do that work, we're then really starting to connect with a higher frequency. And in the higher frequency is where we can connect with inner guidance. And it may be in the form of a spirit guide, or maybe our higher self. And it may be where we can sort of learn now to integrate our higher self into our own physical form, so we can feel that energy and feel that change happening. And there are really great books on doing this, and I use the Paul Selig books are just, I highly recommend. We usually start with Love and Creation and do it concurrent to therapy. And another set of books that I've worked with also with my clients is on self-actualization and spirituality are the Pleiadian workbooks by um, Maura Kuan Yin. And these books are just step by step, easy to read, easy to do workbooks that will take you through. And it's amazing the extra added guidance you get um, from the authors of the book as you're doing it. It just sort of comes in, and you suddenly are doing things a little different than the book's instructions because you're getting that guidance. And those are really magical books um, that have really helped. And I just think that there's just so much possibility. And right now, we're at a time where we want to awaken, we want to have more meaning in our lives. It feels good to walk around and feel that meaning and feel that purpose. It really feels wonderful. And it changes the dimension of being human. It changes that interface that we're having with our planet, with other beings and other people we're in relationship with, and what we do for a living. It changes everything. So it really is wonderful, and it's a great pathway. So let's just review quickly. So connecting with a moment where we can be alone with ourselves. So setting aside 15 minutes, 20 minutes, working our way up to 30 minutes where we spend quiet time just being with ourselves with no expectations at all. That's very difficult to do, to have the discipline to structure that, but that's a great place to start. At that time, we can be concurrently reading a Paul Selig book or doing Pleiadian workbooks. These are just fabulous tools where we automatically now know what to do in that 30 minutes. We have actually work to be done, and we're doing the work and experiencing now in an hour or an hour and a half or an hour and 10 minutes or a 30-minute kind of session, stuff changing, stuff happening. And if we have a spirit guide, we might get advice from that guide on what to do. Or we connect with our higher self, we may get advice on how to proceed, how to do these things. So we're really now moving along here and buzzing along, and now we really have an established practice. Most of all spiritual practices are going to talk about getting rid of the negative stuff. And if you need to, that's where psychotherapy can come in. Powerful psychotherapies like EMDR and hypnotherapy really work to cutting to the chase, getting right into memories that are even dissociative that we can release. And boy, does that change everything when we release that negative stuff that we're just holding on to and lighting up over and over again. So we don't have to be self medicating that and covering it up and masking it with medications. Instead, we can expose it and feel it and release it. And when we release it that way, it's permanent. And it just feels so good to go deep and do such deep release. And it opens us up to higher and higher frequencies. We literally lift energetically when we do that. So that's another essential part. So finding alone time, losing the negative pieces. And there's what happens is we kind of then have a path where we're going along and we're spending time feeling ourselves lift in frequency, doing things that are additive, where we're adding more and more insight and higher frequency and more awareness. We're deepening our awareness in this area. And the more you do this, the more you're able to do this because your brain is accommodating. And then we start to become aware of something else that we need to release. And so we do the release work. And now we can do it on our own. Maybe we don't need psychotherapy for it. We can release it on our own. And then we find ourselves bumping up to another feeling state that's a higher frequency. And this is how it goes. It goes on and on and on until there's nothing else to release. We've done the past lifetimes, we've done our past lifetime, and we just keep noticing things that are maybe new challenges. A new challenge is coming. That's a lesson now. Now we don't get freaked out by a new challenge. We say, wait a minute, this is being put before me on purpose because I need to pay attention to what this is teaching me. And I need to learn by what I'm feeling. And then maybe I'll notice that, you know what? I don't need to feel that feeling. I don't need to go through that challenge because I got it. And wow, what happens is the challenge dissolves, it falls apart. This is now where we start to see that this is a divine plan and it's a part of divine flow. And life backs off when we learn the lesson. That's freaky because now we're changing. We're seeing that we control those challenges. It's not life happening to us. We're making life happen. We're manifesting what it is we need to learn. We're manifesting that we've learned it and that what we don't need to learn. And we manifest our own elevation. And that is really, really engaging spiritual practice and spiritual awareness and awakening. I hope that this is something that we can plug into. I've made it very, very simple. And so that you can kind of watch this and say, okay, I've got some things that I need to do. I need to make a list. I need to spend some alone time. And I need to start working on myself. And that's where it all just starts gelling and starts happening. And it becomes quite magical quite rapidly. So I hope this is inspiring you to dig in and try. So thank you again for watching and see you again on my YouTube channel, Herb Cohen Flow.